Alrighty, let's go ahead and start our last page. We're on page 400. Now we're going to look at a very interesting example. We're going to combine something else that we've previously looked at with grouping. So let's look at this example. I'm going to write it in the margin, so we're going to do example D in the margin. We're going to have 9x squared minus 24x plus 12. Now, as we approach problems here on out, something that we're going to have to keep an eye and look out for is greatest common factor. Usually we only worked with greatest common factor by itself. We haven't seen greatest common factor paired with too many other things. But in this case, we're going to have to do greatest common factor first before anything else. So look at this trinomial. I can see I have a 9, 24, and 12. There is a number I can divide out of all of those. It's actually going to be the number 3. If I divide a 3 out of all of those, I have to write down what I have left. I'm going to have 3x squared minus 8x plus 4. Now, that 3 is going to carry over into our final answer at the end. But for right now, what we're going to do is we're going to work with this trinomial and try to figure out what multiplies to 12. So that's going to be this 3 and that 4. So that A and that C, that's the new A and C we're working with, not the one that includes the greatest common factor, but the one with it divided out. And we're going to see what adds to negative 8. So multiplies to 12, adds to negative 8. Well, if they have to add to a negative but multiply to a positive, both of these have to be negative. So what two numbers, will multiply to 12 but add to that negative 8? Okay, that's going to be negative 6 and negative 2. So those are going to take the spots of this negative 8x. So again, we're just focusing on this guy right now. So let's rewrite that first term, 3x squared. We're going to rewrite that last term. And then in the middle, what's going to replace the negative 8x is going to be negative 6x. And then we're going to have minus 2x. All right, so those are replacing what we have right here. Awesome. Okay, let's go ahead and let's start grouping these, pairing them up, pulling out the greatest common factor, just like before. So greatest common factor here is 3x. What's left after we divide that out is x minus 2. The last two, we have to be careful because there's a negative in front of here, so we're actually going to want to pull out the negative. So we're going to divide out a negative 2. Because what's left after that, when we do a negative 2x divided by negative 2, we're left with just x, and that matches there. We do 4 divided by negative 2, and that's negative 2. So both of these match. So we only write down one of them, and we bring the greatest common factors into the other. And what's actually really nice is don't forget about this 3 up here. We actually bring that down into our answer as well. So that's really the only change in our answer. It's now 3 times 3x minus 2 times x minus 2. If we forget to divide out the greatest common factor, we could still factor the trinomial, but it's not in factored form, so you're not going to get the correct answer. Maybe if you use the distributive property, you will be able to multiply it back and see the original trinomial, but it has to be in this form, in this factored form. This 3, if not divided out, gets lost in one of those binomials, and we do not want that to happen. Okay. As you can tell, it matches our answer down here. I'm going to give you an opportunity now to go ahead, pause the video. I'm going to give you an opportunity to work on the try these D. Go ahead and try those 3 problems. See if you can divide out a greatest common factor before you factor by grouping. If you can't, right, that's figuring out, okay, our greatest common factor is 1. I really don't need to say everything's times 1, and we can approach it like the problems we saw before. Okay, go ahead, pause the video right here, and we will resume shortly with the answers. All right, let's go ahead and check our answers. So for A, we should have gotten 5x minus 4 times x plus 1. So really the only greatest common factor we could pull out from the original trinomial is 1. So we can follow that like normal. But parts B and C, we do have a greatest common factor. For B, it's 7. We divide that out, and then we factor like normal with grouping. So then we get x minus 4 times x minus 2. So that whole thing is our answer. And then with part C, be careful because if you look at this, Ready? You can see we have a cubic term, a squared term, and then an x. We actually have to divide out an x as our greatest common factor in addition to the 3. And that's going to be multiplied times 3x plus 2 times x minus 5. If you wanted, you could put the greatest common factor in parentheses like so, there, but we don't really have to since it's a monomial, since it's only one term.